Dubro Suspicion Files.
Okay, let's dive into a story about a ghost who haunted America for nearly 2 decades. But this isn't just about the ghost. It's about the secret government experiment that may have created him. Think about that. 17 years. For that entire time, a phantom bomber waged a one-man war against technology. He was mailing these meticulously crafted bombs to universities and airlines, the very symbols of the modern world. And this was pretty much all the FBI had to go on. This sketch, a ghost in a hoodie and sunglasses. It's iconic now, right? This single image kicked off the most expensive manhunt in FBI history, a case they codenamed Unabomber. So, when they finally caught the ghost living out in this tiny, remote cabin in Montana, well, the truth was more shocking than anyone could have ever imagined. Because look at this. This is the paradox at the heart of the whole story. On the one hand, you've got the Unabomber, terrorist, anti-technology, target of a massive manhunt. But on the other hand, Theodore Kaczynski, a child prodigy at Harvard at age 16, a legitimate math genius with 167 IQ. How could these two possibly be the same person? And that's the real question, isn't it? The story pivots from what did he do to something far more disturbing. What happened to him at Harvard? Well, back in 1959, a super young 16-year-old Ted Kaczynski volunteered for a psychological study. It was led by a pretty prominent professor, a Dr. Henry Murray. And Ted, he thought he was doing a good thing, contributing to science. The researchers gave him the codename Lawful. Kind of ironic, looking back. His task was to write these long, detailed essays, basically to pour his soul out onto the page. He wrote all about his most cherished beliefs, his personal values, all because he thought he was having a respectful, academic discussion. But that's not what was happening, not even close. The core of the experiment was a total betrayal. It was a brutal 3-step process designed not to understand him, but to break him. So, picture this. They'd sit him in a chair, blind him with spotlights, and wire him up with electrodes to measure his stress. Then, a specially trained law student would come in and just tear him apart, using his own essays, his most personal thoughts as a weapon to launch these vicious, humiliating verbal assaults. And this wasn't a one-off. He went through this for 3 years. 3, for about 200 hours in total. And in a particularly cruel twist, they filmed it all. They filmed his humiliation and then forced him to watch it back, to analyze his own breakdown frame by frame. Now, you might be thinking this was just some twisted academic study gone wrong. But nope, it goes deeper. This whole thing was directly connected to the secret psychological battles of the Cold War. Turns out, the study was funded by a CIA front group called the Human Ecology Fund, and that's a direct link to the notorious Project MKUltra. Yep, that MKUltra, the CIA's infamous program to master the arts of brainwashing and mind control. And here's where the pieces really click together. While another CIA-funded doctor up in Montreal was using LSD and electroshock on patients, Dr. Murray at Harvard was running the clean, Ivy League version of the same project, figuring out how a mind breaks under precise psychological stress. So you can see how this all starts to add up. This trauma, this betrayal, it didn't just disappear. It festered, and it eventually exploded into a deadly 17-year campaign of revenge against the very system that he felt betrayed him. He had this brilliant academic career ahead of him, a professor at UC Berkeley, but he just quit, abruptly. He retreated to the wilderness to get away from it all. But the final break came when he found his favorite secret spot. A beautiful, pristine area had been destroyed for a new road. He actually said it himself. From that point on, I decided I would work on getting back at the system. Revenge. Years later, to stop the bombing campaign, the government agreed to his demand. They published his 35,000-word manifesto. And in it, he attacks this concept he calls over-socialization, which is basically a process where society uses psychological pressure and guilt to force everyone to conform. I mean, just listen to that. The over-socialized person feels shame and self-hatred. Sound familiar? It's a perfect mirror image of the shame and humiliation Dr. Murray's experiment was designed to create. The experiment didn't just traumatize him. It became the central philosophy of his war. So, let's fast forward. Decades later, long after Kaczynski's capture, the ghost of this experiment has returned, and it's being summoned by the very technology he warned us all about. Right now, as we're all trying to figure out the risks of advanced AI, some of the Unabomber's warnings about autonomous technology, well, they're finding a really unnerving new audience. Even some big leaders in the tech world are paying attention. Think about how we try to make AIs safe. Researchers do something called red teaming. They basically subject these powerful digital minds to all-out adversarial attacks to find their breaking points and force them to conform to human values. It's the same method, just applied to a new kind of mind. That parallel is, well, it's pretty terrifying, right? And it leaves us with one last, really provocative question. Are we repeating that same experiment, but this time on a planetary scale?